Okay, folks, so this is kind of silly. I was recording this light in the sky off to the west of our location the other night, and I was zoomed in really close on. I mean, this was max zoom on the Nikon on the P950, and something interesting kind of flew through the screen, and for a split second, I was like, "Whoa, what was that? Is that a UFO?" And just it's just interesting because I see similar videos right there. Yeah, I was zoomed in really close. Like I said, max zoom on the Nikon, and that green thing flies through there. And then when I looked, like with the naked eye, so to speak, it was a plane. There was a plane that flew through. I was just zoomed in really close on that because it was pretty far out there to the west. But it's interesting when I see stuff like this, when I capture little things like this. It's just interesting because I see other channels and other content creators posting up videos showing stuff that's similar to this, and they pass it off as just unknown. Oh, we don't have no idea what it is. It's just another UFO flying through. But I'm telling y'all, this was a plane. Okay, I'm not looking to create a bunch of nonsensical content that distracts people in ways that kind of take people away from what's really actually happening. I zoomed out and I show you could see part of the contrail right in through there, but clearly it was a plane that passed through the viewfinder, and I was just zoomed in really close on this light that was out there in the sky. But it's just too easy to pull the wool over people's eyes. It really is just way too easy sometimes, and I see it with a lot of other content creators that just and they get tens of thousands of views and tens of thousands of subscribers and stuff just to, for the mystery. I guess people like the mystery and the fantasy of it all, but it was a plane, no doubt in my mind whatsoever. But you know there's so much going on, and it's so hard for me to bite my tongue on all of the shit that's going on right now, whether it's politics or all of the manufactured weather and storm systems, and the stuff going on with space, with the whole Blue Origin thing, with the Gail King, Katy Perry and stuff. There's just so many battles right now. You know what I mean? And it's hard for me to bite my tongue. It's hard for me to do any videos talking about any of those topics without ranting and without cussing like a sailor. So I've just been kind of backing off on offering up my opinion about everything that's going on because I've tried. I've tried to make the videos, and then I'll finish doing the screen recording and I'll listen back to it, and it's like all I end up doing is ranting to the point where it just sounds ridiculous, and it's just as annoying to me to listen to myself rant and rave about all the stupid shit going on as it is watching all of the other stupid shit going on and all the other people doing stupid shit. It's just ridiculous right now, all of the battles, and I'm just trying to pick and choose what battles I do fight. you know it's just frustrating. It's really, really frustrating, especially with YouTube throttling my content, throttling my voice, throttling my opinion, and everything all over again. And there's just too much going on. And when it comes to the weather and stuff, I find it really curious. I mean, this is going on right now. Actually, let me refresh the page really quick, because I think it's really curious that we have this map of all of the Chinese-owned farmland around our country right now. And this area over here, I mean, we're over here in southern Nevada, right down in this area here, right in the middle of the high pressure that they keep over top of us that prevents any moisture from accumulating up here. But if you look at this, you can see Utah has a very extensive weather modification program that's been ongoing for several decades. And they've been doing it intentionally. And their reasoning is because they need to pack the hills in, this mountain range that goes down through here, mainly for their ski resorts, because they have ski season, so they create a bunch of artificial snow and they see the shit out of this area here. And the same thing with California. I don't think it's a coincidence that these areas where they're showing Chinese farmland are the areas where I see the most activity when it comes to weather manipulation, weather modification, cloud seeding, SAI, all of that. These are places that have been doing it for a very long time. So, and what really pisses me off about it, though, is because when California does their cloud seeding and their SAI and their injection programs where they're attempting to hijack that atmospheric river, rather, I shouldn't say attempting, they actually have been. Whenever that atmospheric river comes down and starts to make its way into the valley here and up into the desert area here, they seed it. They weigh it all down, and they cause all of that moisture and all of that rain to drop down before it gets over the border. So we end up with nothing. And it's the same thing over here to the northeast of our location. Whenever the atmospheric river comes down and then bends down and around and comes in from the north, they seed the shit out of this area here. And they cause all that rain and that moisture to fall prematurely, as far as I'm concerned, in this area instead of making its way into Nevada. That's why we're high and dry. That's why we are as drought ridden as we are, and why they keep saying that there's this heavy drought going on. Because Utah and California have been hijacking our freaking atmospheric river and the flow of it for decades. They're not allowing any moisture to come into the valley here. And I have my own personal theories about why they like to keep it high and dry myself personally, because there's a lot of underground stuff that goes on out here. Just saying, they can't have water accumulating in certain areas if it's not controlled. But anyway, I don't really think that it's a coincidence that these areas that are showing the China-owned farmland are the areas where I'm seeing the majority of weather modification going on. And now I have a playlist for anybody new to the channel on weather modification reports and these papers and information that they file with NOAA talking about their weather modification projects. I don't think that it's a coincidence that a lot of these, this is one from Sandy, Utah, but uh, it's not a coincidence that a lot of these weather modification reports and a lot of this weather modification that's going on is over these same areas where China owns farmland. I just think that's curious. And this is one of those battles, when it comes to weather modification and cloud seeding and all that stuff. It pisses me off that YouTube puts these context tags on stuff too. And this one in particular, talking about climate change. Of course, there's climate change. I think it's ridiculous how they changed it from global warming to just climate change. I mean, that's pretty vague. That's it's just ridiculous, because I'm not denying climate change. Okay, it's happening. It most definitely is. But I think that it's being influenced mainly by these bad actors and people who just it's not something that we need to be doing. I mean, we're talking about the UK dimming out their sun now too, publicly, and it's frustrating. Because again, like I said, there's all these battles to pick and choose from, and this one with weather modification and SAI and cloud seeding and geoengineering and all that stuff has been my main battle for a while. But now I'm like seeing all of these other channels popping up, and they're just getting tens of thousands of views and they're getting tens of thousands of subscribers. It's just showing bullshit. They don't add additional context. At least when, I show videos and things going on in our skies around here that I capture, at least I provide a little bit of context and stuff. I mean, I could have just posted this up and said, oh, look, it's a UFO. I have no idea what that is. I could have just pretended that I didn't see that it was an actual airplane. There might have been a few people that would have figured it out that, yeah, it was just an airplane flying through. But, it's just too easy to fool people. It's much easier to fool people than to convince people that they've been fooled, right? Isn't that the phrase, the saying? But this battle is not over as far as I'm concerned. And just because I haven't really been posting up a whole lot of videos showing a lot of stuff that's going on around here doesn't mean that I haven't been recording our skies, because I've been recording our skies. I just haven't taken the time to share it, because it's hard for me to not get all upset about stupid shit that's going on. It really is. And again, there's just too many battles. Just too many battles. But for anybody that wants to know a little bit more of the history of weather modification and stuff, I mean, I've got playlists, a few different playlists, but I've showed kind of the history of how far back it goes according to what records we're allowed to have anyway. And, it's a tough battle. It's nice to see a lot of other people joining in on it, but some days I feel hopeful, and then some days it's like, what's the freaking point? Because they're just going to do it anyway. They have been for decades, and they've already got it justified in their minds. And there's already all these stupid idiots in the public, seating area that's sitting there for the show, that's sitting there waiting for the show to start, type of shit. They have them convinced that they need to do these things and that it's perfectly harmless, and that it's just, and this right here, where they show on their form, safety and environment, has an environmental impact statement, federal or state, been filed, and they're all no. Why aren't they required to post up an EIS, an environmental impact statement? Why are they allowed to just go ahead and with project without public consent? Why don't we have a say in it? I'm not willing to accept that, and it pisses me off that so many other people are. You know. Anyway, I seriously do not think that it's a coincidence that these areas, and it's interesting that this weather modification report, the people that filed the form to get it filed, Snowbird Ski Resort and this one, it's all pretty much over the same areas that China owns farmland. So I think that would warrant some kind of an investigation, as far as I'm concerned, and into the reasons why they've allowed all of this weather modification to go on around in these areas, and why NOAA isn't on it. It just, there's no justification as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, I do have a capture of Jupiter, another capture of Jupiter that I'm going to upload as well. And then I also did another original called I Feel Normal that I'm going to share. So anyway, they're just pouring it on thick, aren't they? This looks terrible. Just terrible. Natural weather is one thing, But when they're going around influencing it the way that they are, that's a whole nother thing, and it just pisses me off. It just really, really pisses me off. Thanks for watching. Know that I appreciate you and that you matter very much to me, and it matters very much to me that you stay safe and you stay mindful.